Definitely excited to be able to welcome many guys, Coach Grace, Coach Valentine, Coach Willemsen. And we're kind of start this thing off now. I mean, you guys all are at the beginning of your journeys, a little bit through your journeys now, and we'll start with Coach Grace. I mean, you've gone through a long basketball career. Kind of discuss how you got to the point you're at today.
Yeah, it's been a long career for me. You know, my story is totally different than most. I did 20 years in the Air Force and started coaching basketball while I was still in the Air Force. So I was stationed in Virginia with Boo Williams. I started with Boo Williams when I got stationed there back in '97. Went on to take over his AAU 13-year-olds. And built a great relationship with Boo, obviously. And then I got stationed out in Phoenix, Arizona. Started the Arizona Magic under the Compton Magic program with Udo-Ema. We had great success there. Became a high school assistant coach at Trevor Brown. Then became a head high school coach at South Mountain High School. We turned the program around from going 4-17 before I got there to 29-4 in 2 years and winning a state title. Then I moved on. I retired from the Air Force, obviously, right before the South Mountain gig. And then I got my first break in college at Sacramento State. Took a $20,000 pay cut, slept on the floor in the locker room. And at Sacramento State, and anybody's been there knows that the locker room is not very big and not very nice. So then I went on to the University of San Francisco. In 5 years at Oregon State with Craig Robinson, Michelle Obama's brother, who just recently became the executive director of the NABC. So I'm real happy for him. And then 5 years at UCLA, 1 year at Cal, and 1 year at Vanderbilt.
Absolutely. And Coach Valentine, you've been on before. We've interviewed once before, and you kind of are beginning your journey as well. You're younger under this. Kind of take us through what's it been like kind of getting to the point you're at now at Loyola?
Well, I just feel super, super lucky, super blessed, super fortunate to be in the position like I'm in. And, you know, just like Coach Grace talked about, I don't think you get to where you're at in this profession if, you know, people don't believe in you and you aren't given breaks. And, you know, I started my career with Coach Izzo at Michigan State as a GA. Worked there for a couple years. We, you know, had a lot of success and helped develop guys into NBA players and went from there and worked at my alma mater at Oakland University for Coach Greg Campy for 2 seasons. And then I've been at Loyola going on my 4th year now and had a lot of success, obviously, be highlighted by the 2018 Final Four. And I've just been lucky to work for a lot of, you know, obviously good basketball coaches, but a lot of really good people that care a lot about, you know, teaching the younger generation, the game and helping them achieve their dreams, whether that's their younger staff guys or players. So I think just echoing what Coach Grace said, you got to have really good people around you and people that believe in you to get to where you want to get to.
Without a doubt. Now, Coach Russ, I mean, you've been couple different colleges now. You've had some different experience. You're now at Tennessee State. Just discuss how you got to the point you're at now.
Well, first off, Zach, thanks for having me. And Drew, when I know David Grace, but Drew, I don't know you. When I looked up your profile, man, I got to compliment those suits you're wearing online. Your suit game is high major. I know that. But yeah, Zach, I started off. I wasn't a Division I basketball player. Started off as a manager at Lee University. They're NAI. They were NAI at the time. They're Division II now. Like Coach Grace said, I took a chance on myself. Graduated $49,000 in debt. So I thankfully paid that off in about 10 years. But that's the price you got to pay if you want to get into business. And I was working camps in the summer and met a guy named Dustin Kearns, who's the head coach at App State now. He was a GA at Tennessee at the time. I was fortunate enough to get an interview at Tennessee Tech. He put me on there. He said, Russ, I can get you an interview. What you do from there is on you. So I got an interview there. And it was a unique situation because my boss at the time was Mike Sutton, who's retired now, but he was coach of the year before in the league and contracted a rare condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome. So he was actually in the hospital when he interviewed me. And so when I got on there, that was in June, I was able to go out recruiting in July as the GA/ops because he wasn't able to go out. So I got some valuable experience there. And that next spring we had an assistant leave, and he moved me up from GA/ops to full-time assistant. I was 23 years old. Got really lucky. Spent 8 years there, and then 5 years at South Alabama, and just finished up year 2 here at Tennessee State.
We know this year, 2020, is pretty much defined as the year of chaos, a lot of chaotic stuff going on. And we'll kind of stay with you, Coach Russ, real quick. I mean, we know all the stuff going on right now. You're recruiting, trying to put together your 2020 class, work on 2021. How do you adjust to what's going on in life right now with everything happening?
I think the most important thing is just recruiting our guys over again. You know, we haven't had a single player transfer in this class. Coming off a team that won 18 games, we doubled our wins in year 2. We set the record for most wins in school history, or tied the record for most wins in school history for home games in a single season, was invited to a postseason tournament. So our main focus has been focusing on our guys and making sure that they're good. We got a couple guys in summer school remotely right now, not on campus. We decided not to bring our guys back for the summer. So the adjustment's really been just real focus on our players and getting better. Coach and I do our offense, so I've been studying some European actions for there. But outside of that, just the main focus has been our players.
And Coach Drew, you as well, you're in the middle of putting together your recruiting class. How's it looking for you guys? How are you guys putting this together?
Yeah, so it's been good. We actually have a pretty big graduating class. This season we have 5 senior starters coming back from a team that won 21 games and was once one game behind for winning the league championship. So we actually have one guy that's coming in redshirting and is going to join the 21 class. So we have 4 scholarships, and we actually have 3 left as of now. So just trying to get guys that want to be a part of what we got going on here at Loyola. I think we've got a pretty special culture. We've got a pretty special, obviously, education, academics, and degree, as well as, opportunities, both professionally in basketball, but off the court too, with all the resources and Loyola Alumni Network we have in the city of Chicago. So just looking for guys that want to be a part of this and guys that can come in and continue to help, take the program to the next step and where it's been heading the last couple of years, and just take it a step further.
Absolutely. And Coach Grace, your experience as a recruiter, you've been well known now as one of the best recruiters out there for a long time, especially during your time at UCLA, bringing in guys like Lonzo Ball, TJ Leaf. What's it take to be able to land guys of that caliber?
Well, it takes a lot of praying, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, and a lot of work on relationship building prior to recruiting them. Knowing who they are and knowing their family and knowing the people around them to help make their decisions to come to UCLA when I was there, and then to other schools as well. So a lot of hours on the phone, a lot of talking. You got to have a head coach that's willing to work as well. And when we were at UCLA, Steve Offer worked and wanted to recruit, so he did a great job of helping with that, because we all recruit to our head coaches. So he let me go out and do what I do as far as recruiting when it comes to that part of my job, and also let me do on-court coaching as well. But we're talking about recruiting now, so it's just it's so much involved. The other coaches on this panel will tell you as well, man. Not many free hours, not many off hours. It takes a lot to get a Lonzo Ball to come to UCLA, or TJ Leaf, or Aaron Holiday, or Thomas Welsh, or Kevon Looney, who was the first one to commit to UCLA when we got there, or Jared Cunningham to go to Oregon State, or Eric Moreland to go to Oregon State, and both of those played in the NBA as well. So we could be here a long time talking about what it takes to get those players there. I've been very fortunate and very blessed to work on great staffs and at great universities. You got to sell the university as well, sell the alumni base, sell the current players and philosophies of how we go about coaching the young men that are. And then we sell them the fact that if you come, we'll let you. We'll get you to what you want to do. Your ultimate dream is to the NBA, and we did a great job of doing that as well.
For you guys personally now, there's a lot of ups and downs in coaching, just the way of life of a season. How do you guys kind of go through the course of a year?
Well, when you're in season, it's not much sleep time. You're up early, you get into work early. If you have the scout, you're concentrating on that. You're recruiting as well. You're working with the head coach for the scout, and you're watching film. You're doing the history of the kids that are on the opposite team that you're scouting. You want to know all their characteristics and what they do. With the coach on the other team, his characteristics. And so the scout is very in-depth, so you're spending a lot of time doing that. You're also preparing for your own practice, your own self-scout. I work with the bigs mostly in my career, so I'm preparing to get them ready for practice. I'm also calling recruits on the phone, calling the AAU coaches, calling the high school coaches or the uncles or the aunts or whoever was involved with the kids. So it's a long day. I remember, just use UCLA, for example. I would get in before the traffic hit at around 7 a.m. And then I couldn't leave till about 8:30 at night because of the traffic as well. And we were working. So I would come home, eat dinner, spend about an hour and a half with the wife, and then go back out on the balcony and make phone calls to the evening. And, even on your off day, you're making phone calls here and there. You're also watching film. You're calling the kids that you got on your team, making sure they're all right, making sure their academics are okay. It's a long day. It's 13, 14-hour days.
And Coach Russ, kind of piggyback off that, you go through up and down the schedule. I mean, there's obviously priorities you have to make sure you're ready for. The upcoming game, upcoming schedule, the kids' academics. What's kind of your priority list? How do you kind of organize what needs to be done each day?
I think it's time management. You got to make a list at the beginning of the day. We check our guys' academics every day to see what's important now. For that, we have certain guys that we're responsible for. Coach gives each assistant 3 or 4 guys. And then if you've got a scout, making sure you're ready for practice with that. But like Coach Grace said, man, the time during the season, it's so hard to find a free moment that you find yourself, if you got to walk across campus 10 minutes, you're trying to squeeze 2 recruiting calls in real quick on that walk there, and then on the walk back, just to feel like you're not wasting time throughout the day. But it's a grind. I know that term is overused a lot, but I think time management's the most important thing.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of AU coaches have been reaching out, kind of asking these kind of questions on social media and somewhat. And that's with the pandemic going on. A lot of offers are obviously happening without basketball getting started, and games are back now. You can see the games being played in some states, AU games. How much do you guys value the watching films from games online?
I just said I'm not a great fan of recruiting online. So many things happen. You have to do it now that you're in the pandemic, and you really got to rely on your eyes and ears that are at the event and that are covering the event. But I'm not a big fan of watching the game online. I like to get the feel. I want to be there and see the young man and see how he's doing and see when he puts his sneakers on. See how he's doing. Being coached while the camera's not on him, see how he reacts, how he reacts to his teammates, how he reacts to a lot of things, and the camera might not be on him during that time. So I'm not a fan of it, but in this day and age, you gotta rely on it. So I like to use the eyes and ears of the people that I have confidence in that are actually at the event. I ask a lot of questions after I watch the videos.
And going off that, then, how do you kind of plan to do that, Coach?
I think typically I like to evaluate a kid 3 ways: in AAU, in practice, and in a game. And with his high school setting, well, obviously we can't be out right now, so there's a difference between that mid and high major where Coach Grace can look, and there may be 100 kids in the country that can play for him. At a certain institution he's at, if he's at a higher academic institution, plus the talent of being a high major guy, the talent pool is not as big for him. For us, we can be a little more patient and not panic on a guy. Like if we don't get a guy in the fall, because we haven't built that relationship to feel like he's the best guy for us because we hadn't seen him. We don't have to rush and take a guy like that. So, we can be a little more patient because our talent pool is a little bit wide. We can cast a bigger net. So we're not going to rush in anything. Most of the guys that we've offered are guys we've seen or had on campus up to this point. But the way the transfer portal is going right now, we're going to take our time because we want to make sure it's the best fit for both parties.
And another big thing a lot of guys wonder is we see the movement, these prep schools. I mean, it used to just be a few of them. We should just see something like Finley Prep, Oak Hill, IMG, Montverde. Now there's prep schools all over the country at many in each state. When you see a guy play a national schedule, play against the best night in, night out, how much more does that kind of influence you guys, and how much of an impact does it have on your view on a kid?
I think talent's talent where, the basketball stuff will translate. Sometimes I worry, though, about those guys fitting in schedule-wise. You go from a prep school where typically, you may be taking an online course or something like that, or a smaller classroom with 2 or 3 people and one teacher in there with that. And then they get to college and, they've got 30 or 40 people in a freshman English class and they may struggle with that adjustment. But basketball is basketball. I'm worried about if something happens and what happens in 2021 if we end up not getting a season in and, 2 more guys or half a season in and 2 more guys redshirt per team because they don't want to waste a year on a half a season. And now all these scholarships in 2021 aren't available to these kids. What happens then? That's something I think we got to consider as well. But when you're talking about basketball at the national level, I think basketball's basketball. The talent level translates when you get to college, but I think it's the time management and the ability to withstand the academic and the weightlifting and all that stuff as well.
And Coach Grace, how about you?
I agree with what Coach is saying. With these prep schools popping up, they are playing a different schedule, and it's more like an AAU season than a high school season. I think, you're going to assess talent any way you can. So, if a young man, if you go to a public school game, a regular high school game, and he's the only Division I player, you still got to project out and see how things go. So, but the prep schools, I think with they might become a necessity because with the one-time transfer, we're not going to know how that rule goes. A lot of kids are going to have to go prep school. If you're noticing on Twitter, a lot of the last couple of months, people are signing transfers. So what that does is push everything back. And then with the pandemic, like Coach saying, with the red shirt going on, high school kids are going to have to go to prep school route or low D1 and then transfer up, depending on how they play out the rules here as we go forward in college basketball. But I don't even think there'll be enough prep schools to handle all that because kids are going to want to go prep besides go JUCO because they don't want to burn a year. So these prep schools are going to get flooded with young men trying to keep their eligibility alive. That's not getting recruited to the level they want to get to because of all the transfers.
And both you guys brought up a big rule change that could be happening in NCAA, which is the transfer wire, where you can just go straight to college, go to a different college midway through. For you guys, what's the impact? What will that have on a team, and how do you guys kind of plan for that? Coach Grace, kind of talk about how you plan for that as a coach.
Well, you really got to recruit your kids that you got, and especially the ones that you want to keep. In this day and age, with this generation, transferring is easy for them. They transfer high schools. So it's just a paradigm that you have to accept and go from there, So the one-time transfer rule, I'm hearing it might only be just for freshmen after their freshman year, or if a coach gets fired or leaves to another school. So I'm hoping that's the case. But if it's one-time transfer from everybody, it's going to be chaos, in my opinion. It's going to be, I'm all for the young man wanting to go to the right spot, but every year you're going to have a new team almost, especially in the lower levels, at the low D1 levels, where it seems like the high majors just go and rake their teams and take their best players. So it's a whole different ball game than when I first got in, but it's still going to be a lot of fun. I think if you treat a young man right and you do right by him and you tell him in the recruiting, when you're recruiting him, what's going to happen, and you fulfill those things that you tell him, I think a lot of kids will stay. And but you know, you're going to take a hit here or there. A kid might want to move up and try his shot at the high major level that was at, say, maybe a Sacramento State. You know, so it's going to be a different game. Things are changing. You know, the pandemic has changed everything, and so will the transfer rule.
How about you, Coach Russ?
Yeah, I agree. I think the broad range of recruiting is going to go to projecting kids for 2 years versus 4. Like, I don't think you're going to recruit a kid and say, okay, by his junior year, he's going to be, you know, a full-time starter because by then you may have a totally different roster. I think, like Coach Grace said, you're recruiting a new team every year, and the most important guys are the guys that are already on your team and in your program. But like we talked about earlier, I think it's gonna eliminate some of these scholarships for these kids that are seniors. Like, you know, when it opened up and we could offer these 2022s, if that's the first year it goes into place, some of these 2022s that have an offer right now on the table, 8 months from now, that offer is not going to be there. Like, some of these guys that have an offer that you may try to call and commit, that offer may not be there because now that the one-time transfer rule is eligible, people are going to hold those spots. You know, there's guys that average 4 a game high major and transfer to another high major.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that's just the name of the game that we're in right now.
Absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned how you kind of have to deal with these guys possibly moving on. We know the rule will come into effect at some point in the future. When it does come into effect, what do you want the other things to be along? What other rules have to be alongside that one rule to kind of make sure it still stays structured and things don't get chaotic?
I think something's got to change with the APR. You know, if you're going to hold coaches accountable APR wise, and we're going to be penalizing the whole team if you're under a certain 4-year average. Well, if all of a sudden, you know, you do your job and recruit a kid for 2 years, he comes in and averages 10 or 12 a game as a freshman, and then you lose that 3 years in a row, and you keep getting APR hits, and now all of a sudden you got a postseason ban off something you can't control. I don't know if that's fair to coaches. So I think there's, you know, and I've heard, and David, maybe you can chime in, there's going to be an academic component to it, a certain GPA that you got to be above. But, you know, if we're going to allow open free agency, then we've got to tweak the APR rules in some way or capacity.
Absolutely. And what's your thoughts on that, Coach?
I agree. You know, I agree. You're going to have to change the APR for sure. Because it's going to happen. There's going to be so many kids changing and transferring. Excuse me. You know, and to piggyback on it a little bit earlier, a lot of teams won't carry 13 scholarships, especially the high majors. They're going to want to carry maybe 10 or 11 scholarships and get that mid season transfer as well. So they'll probably only carry 11 guys, and that's going to take away 2 scholarships for high school kids that they would normally take. And then if you know, at the high major level, you recruit a kid and you don't play him because you're trying to do skill development with him, he's not going to stay. He's going to leave because he wants to come in and play right away. So the skill development piece will come into play as well. You won't have him long enough to skill develop him.
Without a doubt. And what's your thoughts on that rule, and what are the rules need to be implemented so it doesn't get chaotic off the transfer rule?
You know, I kind of don't know what to think yet. You know, I think there's been a lot of different speculation about, you know, people's opinions upon what's going to happen. But I think Coach Russ kind of, you know, had a really good point earlier when he talked about, you know, their team and relationships you have with your own players. And that's all you can control, right, is how your players, you know, overall experience at your school, at your program, within your program is. So I guess I just don't know what it's going to look like. I'm just very interested to see how it's going to look. I think it's honestly a good thing for the players that if they're not in a situation that they feel comfortable in, that they have the ability to make another decision to go to another place. And I think it's our job as coaches to allow, you know, and treat our players, you know, with the respect that they deserve, and try to, you know, not give them a reason to leave, I guess you could say.
And with that, there is another big rule that's starting to come into play, and that's the paying aspect. We're not sure exactly how it's going to look, what's going to happen with that. We'll kind of stick with you, Coach Valentine. When you see the payment options coming in, what do you think it's going to look like? How's this going to work out?
I guess kind of similar. Like, I think it's going to put. I think athletic departments are going to have to hire somebody that's externally, maybe the person that's in charge of fundraising. For the athletic department, might have to take a bigger role in trying to provide opportunities for the student athletes now. Maybe that's a role within our own coaching staffs that somebody kind of spearheads and takes over, just like you would with the recruiting or scouting aspect. But I'm excited for the players. I'm excited that they get an opportunity to capitalize on special time within their lives, and have the opportunity to try to make a little money on the side while they're playing for your program.
Coach Grace, how about you? When you look at the new payment aspect coming in, what's your thoughts on it?
I'm all for that. I mean, I really hope the student athlete can make money as much as they can. I'm really big on that. That will stop some of the cheating that goes on. There's going to be a lot of things that come with that, though, because you're going to actually have compliance. It's going to have to monitor that. So, and then I don't know all the ins and outs about it, but some booster downtown that might own a car dealership might give just as money to the kid rather than give it to the university. So they're going to have to work those issues out. Like usually that booster was giving money to upgrades with the arena or the locker rooms or stuff like that, and now that person would just give the money to the kids, and you're going to have to monitor that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different shift in paradigms as well. So it's definitely some stuff that we haven't seen, obviously, and there'll have to be some rule changes that go along with it. But I'm really big on having the student athlete make money.
How do you kind of plan to handle that, Coach Russ?
Yeah, I think there's just so much uncertainty with it right now that it's going to be, as it starts to take effect, we're going to have to learn and try to navigate through that. I'd rather, I'm all for players making money, but I'm also, I see guys at our level that once they graduate, the struggle from graduation to finding a job, that gap period. So I would almost rather take the money that they get, because when they're in college, I see our players, they go buy Balenciagos, they go buy these $600-700 pair of shoes. And it's like, but when you're done playing and you've graduated, that gap between you before you go play professionally overseas and or get a job, whatever it is, you need some money there. So I'd rather take some of that money that they'd earn, put it into a mutual fund, and once you either sign a pro contract or get a degree, you get all that back. So that could help them jumpstart life, maybe a down payment on a house or get a car or some kind of form of transportation. But I'd like to see more of an educational point to it versus just giving them a full lump sum of money. And, if we're going to do it, let's educate these guys to how to spend it,
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the big things that really influenced it was the G League movement. Obviously, we know Jalen Green and a lot of guys followed that. Would you say that the G League was one of the reasons that the NCAA kind of sped up this payment process? We'll start with you, Coach Russ.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think there's so many uncertainties. Like, I've heard that the G League, they're considered a G League select team, but they're not really going to play the full schedule. They're going to play different teams. They're going to travel different. They're not going to be on a bus for 9 hours. They're going to take a flight, and it's going to be totally different. So it's considered under the G League umbrella, but I'm not sure I would consider it a G League team. But I think we need to give it a season to see how things play out before we, jump to conclusions on how good or how bad it is.
And Coach Grace, you've dealt with guys that would have been that consideration as well. A guy like Lonzo Ball, we talked about, Kevon Looney, those guys probably would have been the G League mix. How would you kind of combat that when you have G League offering a player and you just want a guy to come to your college?
Well, you really have to do your homework on seeing if that's a viable option for them, if that's what they want to do. I'm all for it. I've been talking about it. I was very fortunate enough to recruit a lot of one and dones, and I'm all for it for them if they want to go straight to to the G League for right now, or maybe they'll change the rule and go straight to the NBA in the future. Let them go. The NCAA will still be fine. But when you're recruiting those type of kids, you really got to do your homework. Just like Jalen Green, I recruited Jalen Green when I was at UCLA, and then when I went over to Cal and then the Vanderbilt, I stopped really recruiting him. I stayed in touch with his family, but I already knew that that college wasn't really their priority. So you just jump off and go recruit somebody else that you know will that would want to go to a UCLA or Vanderbilt or Cal. And you know, it's sometimes you don't know that, so you stay in the game hoping that the kid will come to your university, but you know, you really got to calculate that, because you could be just, you know, spinning your own wheels and wasting your time. And as you know, as a college assistant coach, you don't have time, or a head coach, you don't have time to spin your wheels.
And Coach Drew, you as well. You're obviously your brother. We know he was a top pick in the NBA draft. You're a Michigan State program that had a lot of guys also in that consideration. You see this G League route. What's your thoughts on it?
You know, I think like Coach Grace said, I you know, part of me is, you know, all for, you know, if you want to go, but then, you know, there's another part of me that has seen, you know, a lot of guys, you know, and have been, you know, still around, you know, different families and things of that nature when I'm, you know, at the, you know, Bulls, you know, games and things of that nature and around their practice facility, like with my brother and stuff. And I just, I know how hard it can be to, you know, be a 18, 19-year-old with that kind of money, with, you know, the people that you have around you. I think the people that are going to have the most success within that, you know, route would be the people that have the best support teams around you. People that aren't going to be reaching for handouts and putting unfair expectations on what to expect for outside of basketball. I think from a basketball perspective, it'll be good. I mean, guys will develop. Guys will get a chance to you know, figure out how to time manage and things of that nature that you do in college. I worry about some of the kids and young men that are taking that route. I worry about the people around them, and if the people allow them are going to have them in the best mindset, in the best you know, situation to have the most success at that you know, G League select team, I guess.
Absolutely. One of the last things I want to touch up on is constantly seeing these guys reclass up a grade. Some guys get held back and go down a grade. When you're dealing with that as a recruiter and a guy reclasses or stays down, how do you handle that process?
Well, again, that's where the communication part comes in. You got to really know that's a chance of happening, and you got to keep your head coach informed. Sometimes that helps where you're at. Sometimes it doesn't, depending on how you're managing your roster. If you want a kid to stay back, you know, you kind of try to manage that. If you want a kid to move up, and he has opportunity, and the young man thinks he can, then you go ahead and do that. Chris Smith, that I recruited to UCLA, was a young kid, and he classified up and came in, and now you see he's benefiting from it because he's still in the draft right now with the opportunity to get drafted. So, you know, you just stay in touch with the people that are around the young man, and you know, you gotta, when you're recruiting a young man, you gotta monitor his academics as well. You just don't monitor the academics with the team that you have in college. You gotta monitor the high school kids as well. So you'll learn real quick once you find out where his grades are and what he's thinking, and then you just go from there and you keep your head coach informed.
And Coach Russ, I mean, these guys obviously are also getting held back in as early as middle school, elementary school for basketball purposes. When it comes time for high school and they might be a year older than some of the competition they're playing against, do you value a guy that might be a year wiser, a year older?
Yeah, I mean, I was a late bloomer myself. I was 18 the day I turned 18, the day I walked across the stage, and gained 35 pounds my freshman year of college. And so I was tiny. I was 5 and grew 2 inches too. I was 5'11", 130 pounds when I graduated my senior year. And so I think anytime you got a kid that's a year older, a year stronger, I think that's the positive thing. The one thing I would caution is when people do reclass after they've started their freshman year, a lot of kids get some misinformation. I've talked to some kids that are saying, "Coach, I'm going to reclass," and they just leave. They don't understand that you still have to graduate within those 4 years. Otherwise, the NCAA won't take anything from that 5th year. And so, like Coach Grace was saying, the educational part, looking at a kid's transcript. So I always make sure when kids start talking about that, I always make sure that educate them on exactly what it means to reclass. It doesn't just mean changing grade level. You still have an academic component and requirement that you've got to maintain.
Coach Drew, same thing with you then. Do you value a guy that might be a year older than other guys in this class?
I think you can look at it a couple different ways. I think you can look at it like a guy that's a year younger might have, some more, upside or growth possibility. I know, Coach Beeline at Michigan, one thing, sitting in the stands and on the sidelines with him at all the recruiting events. And, he did a great job of, while he was at Michigan, while finding a ton of under the radar type of kids that developed into pros. And a lot of that was obviously due to their staff and their system. But he always, on the coaches' handbooks that we always has, if they had birth dates, he always had the birth dates highlighted. So I guess you could look at it from one that way, from his mind of thinking it. But then again, a guy that's older might be able to make a bigger impact on your program from day one. So I think you got to kind of know what you want in the student athlete, whether you want somebody and you're okay with them developing, taking some time, but you're okay with the upside they might have. But then also, if you need somebody that's for sure to come in right away, that might be 19 or 20 when they come into school. And they're a little bit more physically mature. So I think there's good for if kids are older, and also good if they're younger. It just depends on what you want within your staff and what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And there's one final thing I always wrap up with the players. I want to wrap up with you guys as well. And that's talking about you guys' legacy. What you guys ultimately want to be remembered for by the time you guys walk away? Valentine, to stick with you real quick. By the time you leave this game, stop coaching a long time down the future, what's that legacy you want to be remembered for?
I guess just somebody that made a difference. It might be cliche, but made a difference in universities and programs, and cities and towns and things of that nature. But more importantly, a difference in people's lives. My dad, the reason why I wanted to coach was because my dad was my high school coach, and he was somebody that has really changed people's lives. With his influence and with his ability to connect with them. So that's what motivates me every day, is the ability to make a difference in not only my program, my university, and make that better, but most importantly, make a difference in our student athletes' lives and try to help them get to be the best version of themselves and hopefully change their families' lives.
Absolutely. And Coach Russ, how about you? What do you want your legacy to be by the time you walk away someday?
Kind of similar to what Drew said. I'm big. I tell kids all the time, like, a lot of people sell to 40-year decision education-wise, and I 100% agree with that because of the degree component. But I always tell kids it's a 40-year decision relationship-wise, and like I have a list of all my former players, and I try to call one a day, so they're hearing from me, 2, 3, 4 times a year. I've been to former players' weddings. I've been there when their kids are born. One of my former players is actually now the director of ops at Wake Forest, and I'm the godfather to his son. And I think those things are the most important thing, that when we walk away, we want to say that we planted seeds and showed kids how to be good fathers, good husbands, how to function in society and make a difference.
That's awesome. And finally, Coach Grace, how about you?
Well, piggyback on what Drew and Coach Ross said, I want to be known as a person that gave back to the student athletes that I coached, that I was a very good, not only a good coach, but a good person around them. And I was able to impact their lives in a positive manner, not only just the players, but the my coworkers, the GAs, the managers, the administrators, the head coach, that I made a positive impact in their lives, and that I was a good person and I did it the right way. I don't have to do this. I did 20 years in the Air Force. I get a pension from this. This is the reason why I do it is because I want to make a great impact in other people's lives, and I want to see them be successful. When I get phone calls from my former students, even the guys that just played high school and moved on and started families, those are the best days for me when I get a phone call from a former player.
Absolutely, guys. Well, definitely appreciate all three of you guys for coming on today, and I'm excited to see what God's got next for you guys.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Great seeing you guys.
Thank you. Hey, Drew, let me borrow one of those suits.
I got you, man. Let me know what size, man. Let me know what size. But yeah, hey, Zach, thanks for having us, man. As always, man, you do a quality job, and love to see, man, you're taking off, man. So excited to see where your career goes, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. God bless.
Thank you.
All righty. Good luck, you guys. Good luck.
All right, we'll see you.
Zach.
See you guys.
All right.